Hi, everyone, and welcome in. I'm Kaki. I'm a mom to a wonderful 7-month-old little girl, and a proud member of the Auggie community. And I'm so glad that you guys could join us today. So, whether you're tuning in during a lunch break, in the middle of your day, or just taking a quick pause, thank you so much for taking time to be here. We know that bedtime can be such a real struggle, especially when your toddler is fighting sleep or just having trouble falling and staying asleep without your help. That's exactly why we're here today, to give you that support and the tools you need to help your little one build independent sleep habits. Before we jump in, I just want to quickly introduce Auggie for anyone who's new here. Auggie is a platform created just for parents where you can connect with others, get real recommendations from the community, and discover trusted products and services. It's your online village because we know that raising kids takes an entire community. Today, we're so lucky to have Danielle Green with us. Danielle is a sleep expert specializing in toddler sleep, and she's going to walk us through how to create more predictable and enjoyable bedtimes. She'll show us how to conduct a family meeting to set sleep expectations, use role playing to check your toddler's understanding, and share strategies to help your toddler confidently fall and stay asleep on their own. Plus, she'll answer all of your toddler sleep questions, so get ready. And a quick reminder, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please just go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'll also check the chat in case you are unsure of how to use the Q&A box. So either the chat or the Q&A box, whichever you prefer. And we'll definitely have plenty of time to go through as many of those as possible. So don't be shy, drop your questions in. We want to give you as much help as possible. With all of that, I will hand it over to Danielle to introduce a little bit more about herself.
Thank you, Kaki. It's so good to be here. Kaki, can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? Okay, great. So I'm Danielle, and I am a pediatric sleep consultant. And while we are here today to talk mostly about toddler sleep, I do also just want to let you know that I do work with babies as young as 10 weeks. So if you have or if you know anyone who has an infant and they're not a toddler, I'm always happy to support them as well. So I work with babies as young as 10 weeks and with big kids as old as 10 years. So obviously the support that you're going to offer a 10-week-old is going to be significantly different than the support you're going to be offering a toddler or a 10-year-old. Today, we are going to be focusing on toddler sleep. And it is no secret that toddler sleep is a totally different beast than infant sleep, right? So many times I work with families who will come to me and say, oh my gosh, Danielle, they were such a great sleeper when they were a baby. And all of a sudden, like we hit the twos and everything is wonky. Nothing is working anymore. What we were doing before isn't working anymore, and that's normal. And I'm here to let you know that while there are so many sleep issues that are common, we don't have to normalize them. And there are things that we can do in order to get you sleeping, to get your kids sleeping independently. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you have any questions about, keeping your kids in their beds, they're getting up all night and looking for you, bedtime routines, family meetings, night lights, pacifier dropping, you name it, anything is fair game. This is a totally judgment-free zone. And let's get started with your questions. I know there's never enough time for sleep questions. So you could start popping your questions in the chat box, in the question box, and we can get started.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So let's start with this one. Transition from crib to bed tips. Terrified she will just get out of bed all night. So Anna, let me see. Did you put how old? Okay, 34 months. All right. So the transition from crib to bed is monumental, right? Any sleep transition, whether you're dropping a nap or in this case, going from crib to bed, how you prepare matters. In general, all sleep transitions go best when they're delayed as long as possible, because if you transition your child from a crib to their bed before they're actually ready, then half the time it will backfire, right? So you want to make sure that you're transitioning your toddler from their crib to their bed because there's a safety concern. In this case, it would be climbing out of their crib regularly. Maybe they've hit the height or weight limit. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually we're transitioning out of bed because they're climbing out. If your toddler is not climbing out of their crib yet and you're just transitioning them because you feel like they're ready, maybe, they're 2, they're 3, I do encourage you to hold off, but let's talk about the transition regardless. Whenever we change anything in about our child's sleep, we want to make sure that we're prepared. How you prep your child is ultimately going to be what makes or breaks the transition. And so you don't want to wait until like 5 minutes before they start sleeping in their bed for the first time to let them know what the expectations are, right? This is where the family meeting comes in. So you are going to sit down with your toddler and any other caregiver that's involved, and you're going to have this meeting. And this is where you're going to set up the expectations. You might say to your child, "Hey, Emily," I'm making up a name here. "Hey, Emily, I'm so excited for you that you are about to sleep in this big kid bed. This is huge. I'll never forget when I got my bed." And then they're going to talk about the expectations. It might feel a little bit different because all of a sudden you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can get out of bed. If I need water, I can go ask mommy for a cup of water." And that's not what we want, right? We want your child to stay in their bed. And so you're going to say, just like, remember when you were in your crib and you couldn't get out whenever you wanted? If you needed something, you needed to call me or you needed to call daddy and ask or let us know that you needed or wanted something. The rules are the exact same in your bed. If you need or if you want anything, just call us. We'll hear you. But you have to wait until one of us comes in to address the issue, right? And you're going to obviously use kid friendly language. You don't need to say address the issue. But the idea is that you're letting your child know that the expectation is if they need or want anything, they must wait in their bed until you come in. So it's great to let them know what the expectations are, but that's the easy part. The tricky part is making sure that your child actually understands what the expectations are. And how do you check for a child's understanding? Well, it's really easy to say, "Okay, so do you understand what I said?" And they're going to be like, "Yeah, yeah, I do." That doesn't mean anything in toddler land, right? Like the yes can mean also, could also mean no. They also know that you want them to say yes. So the next thing you're going to do is check for their understanding by doing role play. You're going to role play during the day, right? They shouldn't just wait before bedtime. And you could pretend to put each other to bed. So your child could pretend to put you to bed, and you'll show your child what it means, what it looks like to sleep in their bed while following the rules and while holding firm to the boundaries. So you're going to show your child, okay, you got into bed. You might sit up in the middle of the night or during bedtime, and you might want to get out of bed, but you're going to remember, mommy told me lay back down. I have to wait for a grown up, right? So you're going to show her through that role playing, and then your child can take a turn as well. If your child isn't into that type of pretend play, you can use stuffed animals, you can use dolls, whatever it is, action figures, and pretend to put those items to bed. But the idea is that you have a family meeting, you role play, and then you implement with consistency. Boundaries are pushed more when the limits are not clear. So as long as you hold firm to your boundaries, you will absolutely be setting your child up for success. And you don't want to, just one more thing about this prep, you don't want to wait until the day before. You also don't want to talk about it ad nauseum, right? So you want to just find a happy medium. Maybe like the week leading up to it, you start having conversations about the expectations around this new sleeping arrangement. Okay. My daughter, 2.5, requires a really long bedtime routine, and sometimes it really ends up being late songs and book until she's really ready for going to bed, or else she'll cry or scream when we put her down in her crib. Any tips to shorten it to make it smoother and seamless? Here's the thing about toddlers. They require more wind down time. For many toddlers, you're looking at 30 to 60 minutes of prep time as they're getting ready to wind their bodies down. You said 2.5. So I'm assuming, please correct me if I'm wrong, Dahlia, that your daughter is still napping. It's really, really normal to have a later bedtime for a toddler that is still napping. When my son was 2.5, 3, and he was still napping, his bedtime was sometimes it was 8:30, sometimes as close to 9 o'clock. So it feels really, really late because it is. And I know that it creeps into your night and you lose so much precious time on your end, but it's really just a phase and it's short-lived. And as soon as your daughter drops the nap, then her bedtime will creep back up to close to 7, maybe even a little bit earlier as she gets used to not having a nap. But the bedtime routine is it doesn't have to, I don't know what time you're starting, but if you recognize that it's normal to have a later bedtime, say 8, 8:30, and you start at 8, it won't feel as long to you because you won't be expecting her to be going to sleep earlier. I hope that makes sense.
She had a couple follow-ups that said she's not napping anymore, and that in school, she's in school and doesn't nap there.
Okay. Okay.
I,
So then, yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
So I don't know what time, she's waking up in the morning. If she's not napping, her bedtime should be, close to 7. 2 to 3-year-olds require 11 to 12 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period, right? So if your bedtime is, if you're shooting for a 7 a.m. wake, then you need to count back, 11 to 12 hours before that to figure out what time your daughter should be going to bed. Um, does that make sense? I'm happy to talk, of course, on offline as well.
I'm wondering for like this type of Q&A, would you like them to actually just come on and ask their
Yeah,
question?
that
That way
might be
when
helpful.
you have
Yeah, yeah,
questions back, you
yeah, yeah.
can we can kind of
Sure,
have a dialogue. Okay,
sure.
great. Let's go then to Karen, best toddler bedtime, if you want to unmute and come on screen.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi Karen, how are you?
Yeah. So my daughter's never actually been a great sleeper. But anyway, so she turned 3 in February. And I guess I'm struggling with bedtimes. So I think as I wrote, so she naps at school. They nap 12 to 2. She typically falls asleep, I think 12:20, 12:30. Um, and I'm usually putting her in her crib around 8:30, but she will be in there for like an hour, hour and a half until she's actually falling asleep. So she's falling asleep at like 10, and then I have to get her up at 7. Um, which doesn't feel like enough sleep.
Just
Um,
usually,
so I,
how old is she?
yeah,
Just repeat her age one more time.
she turned 3 in February. Sorry.
So she's nearly 2. Or
Yeah,
yeah.
early 3. Yeah. So, and then on weekends, she doesn't nap. She basically only naps, during the week at school. And so just a question of weeknight bedtime versus weekend bedtime. Should I be shifting weeknight bedtime earlier since it's taking her so long to go to sleep? I mean, I've like tried to move it later, but she's still like, so I'm just not quite sure.
Yeah. So just so you're aware, three toddlers drop their nap between the ages of 3 and 4. So it sounds like she's really on the cusp of doing so, given what she's doing on the weekends is not napping, and at school she obviously is. So if she's going to be napping at school, she is going to need a significantly later bedtime during the week than she does on the weekend. It's okay to have a different bedtime. The idea is that you're looking at her total sleep hours in a 24-hour period. So 3-year-olds require 11 to 12 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. If she is napping, I'm just making up numbers here, say for 2 hours at school, that's obviously a very long nap for a 3-year-old, and she only needs 12 hours, then she's going to only need 10 hours at night. Does that make sense? And so really, it feels like 10 to 7 is, or whatever time it is that she's falling asleep, it feels like it's not a lot of time during the week, but when you consider however long she's napping and you combine it, if it's somewhere between 11 or 12 hours and even a little bit less if she does have lower sleep needs, it's not much of a concern. Obviously 10 o'clock is really late, and so if the nap is making it so that her bedtime is really challenging during the week, then I would recommend having a conversation with the teacher about, hey, bedtime, she's not falling asleep for like a really, really long time. Is there any way you can either have her just rest with some books or cap her nap to just be like a 30-minute cat nap to help her make it to bedtime? But that's what my recommendation would be. Is there an option to not nap at her school?
I will have to ask them. I don't. I think all of the kids nap in her class. She's like the third oldest,
I was gonna
so
say, is she one of the
um, I think she would be an outlier. I don't know. I can certainly have that conversation. I'm not sure if
Yeah, see if you could bring some books in or just something for her to like a coloring book or something, just because I don't know where you live, but there are a lot of like laws and regulations around nap time and rest time in daycares and schools. So they might come back and be like, she has to sleep, and you're gonna be like, well, I'm telling you she doesn't. Can she just rest? Like rest is just as important as sleep. So there's a really good chance she just doesn't need the nap anymore. Is bedtime still at like 10 o'clock? Or is she still falling asleep super late on the weekend?
So I would say it varies. She seems to actually be shifting a little bit. Like this past weekend, I actually got her asleep by 8 p.m., which for me was a win. Um, I would say without naps up until this point, it has still been late, but this past weekend, it maybe hopefully is shifting towards a little bit earlier.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like the nap is the culprit, and then obviously
Okay.
make sure that you have an appropriate bedtime routine and that you're just like starting at the right time.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Awesome. It looks like we have Abby next. Should toddlers sleep with pillow, blanket, stuffed animals? If you want to unmute. Sure.
Yes, that I did have a question. So my son is switching from a daycare from like the infant room to the toddler room. And so he's going from like napping in a crib with a sleep sack to then I think they do cots or something with a blanket. And they said you can bring a blanket or a pillow. So is that something or and a pillow, but is that something that I should implement at home as well that we still have him in a sleep sack in his crib at night? Should I switch him to a blanket at home as well to try to keep it consistent, or is it okay to do two different things?
It is absolutely totally fine to do two different things. How old? 16 months old, I think I
Yeah,
said.
16 months.
It's totally fine to do two separate things. The truth is, if as long as your child is willing to wear the sleep sack, keep it on them for as long as
Hmm.
possible. It will prevent them from doing all sorts of different things.
Yes, he's a climber, so it keeps him
Yeah.
from like
So
climbing.
yeah. Again, I can tell you from personal experience, my son, who's now 4.5, when he made the same transition, we kept him in a sleep sack until he was like 14 months. They switched him at 12 months. Just because he flat out said, I'm ready for a blanket. My daughter, who is almost 2, is still in a sleep sack, but in a cot and a blanket at school, and it's totally fine. They're really good at distinguishing and like separating daycare.
Okay.
They're really good at it. Yeah.
And is a pillow okay, like at 16 months at daycare, or should I? He doesn't really. He sleeps mostly on his stomach anyway. He obviously turns around and turns over a lot. But is that something I should bring in or not worry about it right now?
Does he use a pillow at home?
No.
You don't need it. I find that most families who are interested in introducing a pillow, they do so closer to the age of 2. And even then, like you don't have to. The only reason my daughter started using one at 23 months is because my son put one in her crib, right? Like
Okay.
otherwise she would not use it. If you do choose to use a toddler pillow, I can send this link afterwards if you'd like, if it would be helpful. But they make toddler pillows that are like safe for toddlers and the right size and everything. So
Okay.
you can find them on Amazon, but it's totally not necessary.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Great. I think the next one we have, I don't have a name, iPhone 72. 3-year, acts up right before bedtime. Not sure if you're able to unmute, or if not, I can just read your question. The routine is the same every night: dinner, bath, play, book, brush, teeth, bed. It becomes a battle between play and bed, delaying bedtime, but he acts up being horribly mischievous and doing everything he knows he shouldn't. How can we have him not act out?
Okay, so first of all, I'm so sorry that you're struggling. I know that it's really tough. Like this is the bedtime battle that we're talking about in the title. It would be helpful to know if he is napping still. Um, because if he is napping, my gut tells me that he will just need a later bedtime. But if he's not napping, at the end of the day, it really comes down to boundaries, right? Toddler sleep, it's not just about sleep, it's about holding firm to boundaries. And when the boundaries are not clear, kids push. The more clear your limits are, the less they push them. And so it could be really helpful because your bedtime routine, the dinner, bath, play, book, brush, teeth, bed, does look really, really good. I don't know how long it's taking though. So like I said, toddlers require like 30 to 60 minutes of wind down time. So you really want to make sure that you're filling his cup with lots of love and attention prior to going to bed. Because if you're not, I don't know if you're seeing him during the day, but if you're not seeing him during the day and your bedtime routine is really quick, there's a really, really good chance that he just misses you and wants to spend time with you and make up for all that lost time during the day. So I would definitely encourage you to make sure that your bedtime routine is long enough, to make sure that you're keeping your phone out of the room if possible, to really just focus on bonding, because toddler bedtime routines, the point of them is to cultivate connection between a toddler and their caregiver. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. And like I said, just making sure that you have an age appropriate bedtime, because a lot of times what will happen is a toddler won't have the um the verbiage to like let you know that they're just not tired enough. And a lot of times what happens, especially if they're napping, is that their bedtime is just way too early and it needs to be later, and then things are pretty smooth sailing from there. The other thing is, I don't know if your toddler is falling asleep with your assistance or independently, but if he's not falling asleep independently, that will also empowering him with that confidence to do so can help as well. And I'm, happy to talk to anybody here afterwards about, working more closely together to make bedtime wonderful.
They had a few updates
Mm.
further down in the chat that says, yes, he is napping. They just started shortening his nap. Dinner's at 6, bed between 7:30 and 8. They see him all afternoon, and he falls asleep independently.
Okay, so you're taking the nap is an hour and a half, right? And so you have to remember that bedtime, that sleep needs for a 3-year-old are 11 to 12 hours. So you're going to take that 1.5 hour nap and you're going to have to add it to or subtract it from his night sleep. So really, he might only need like 10 hours, right? That would get him to 11.5 hours. He also might only need 9.5 hours of sleep overnight. So you really need to figure out what time you need him waking by in the morning, count back 10 hours to start, right? And then so that would be 10 hours of nighttime sleep plus the 1.5 hours of sleep. I have a feeling that his bedtime is too early. I'm happy to troubleshoot this with you more on the side for sure, but I do have a feeling that you may want to consider like an 8:30 bedtime. It might even creep close to 9. If you find that even that is too late, or too early, you may want to consider starting to drop the nap a little bit more, or cap the nap first at an hour. And if that doesn't work, then you'll need to start dropping the nap entirely. Does that make sense?
How do you drop a nap? Was the follow-up.
Okay, so nap transitions are tough, especially the one where you are getting rid of the nap entirely, because all of a sudden your child is going from being up for X numbers of hours in the day, getting a nice nap in the middle, being up before bed for a few hours, to being up all day. And that can be really, really difficult for a child, especially for a child whose naps are still going well, but bedtime and the nights are being disrupted. It's a tough challenge. So the idea is that you can cap it slowly, right? And you can do it gradually. So to your point, you can, I know you capped it a little, now it's an hour and a half. You can start capping it at an hour. Eventually you could do 30 minutes. Whenever you do drop the nap, you want to talk to your child about this transition and really prepare them for it, because for some kids who love their nap, it can be really challenging. You're going to eventually want to replace your nap with quiet time. Just because your kid isn't getting shut-eye does not mean that they don't need to relax their body. So this could mean they're reading books. It could mean they're playing quietly with some toys. We don't want to be watching TV if possible at the beginning, at least while you're implementing this, because it's just going to stimulate their brain way more. You really want to be doing something that's calm and low stimulating. And this, implementing quiet time and rest time will require that same type of family meeting and role playing that that I was talking about earlier. Implementing quiet time can be tricky for some kids whose stamina isn't so great yet for focusing on one thing quietly on their own. So you can start with 5 minutes of quiet time at a time, or you could do like an hour together and then slowly wean them from the dependency that they have on you to be together during quiet time. It's a great opportunity to also teach them about independent play and just having some me time.
Great. Thank you. Next question I see is from Claire. She says, when can I give my daughter a pillow? We kind of talked about, do I need a special toddler pillow? I know you said you'd share one after this.
Yeah, I can share a link. You know, the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests nothing loose in the crib until a baby is at least 12 months of age. That said, for a pillow, I usually see that closer to 2. It's not a safety concern if you do it before, but it's absolutely not necessary. And I actually think that it could serve more as a distractor if it's introduced too early.
As she's 31 months already.
I mean, if you find that she wants one, you can absolutely introduce one. Otherwise, you don't have to. I did it at 2.5 years for my son, for reference. So you don't want the pillow to be too high, obviously, because their neck is so small, like they won't be able to reach it comfortably. But there are small toddler ones on Amazon. I can share a link at the end of this that are really, really great. They're small. Target has a kids bedding line, and they have pillows. They're bigger though than the ones you're going to want, but they're still smaller than a standard pillow. So if anyone has like a 4-year-old and you're looking for a pillow, Toddler has a great kids line. You're welcome.
Okay. Next question I think I see is Diana. She said a question about falling asleep independently. I rock my 21-month-old to sleep and we both love it. Will that be a problem down the road? There are times when I put her into the crib before she is asleep, and after a short protest, she calms down and falls asleep. So she can do it. This time will only last so long, so I want to enjoy it.
All right. I love this question, okay? Because people always think that they're doing the wrong thing. They think that they're doing something bad. You guys, the only time we're doing the wrong thing is if we're doing something wildly unsafe. Otherwise, I support whatever you want to do. I always tell families, do not fix what isn't broken. If you find that what you are doing isn't serving you well, isn't serving your child anymore, then at that point you may decide, hey, I'm going to call Danielle, I'm going to get some support from somewhere, and I'm going to make a change. But you clearly seem happy with what you're currently doing, and if it's working well for you, then you should have at it. The one thing I do want to just make you aware of is I had a client last year, their daughter was 2, just turned 2. And like you, they were rocking her every single night before bed, and she slept through the night until 7, no problem. And then she turned 2, and they rocked her to sleep. And every single night after that, she was up every single hour. And what happens is, and I'm going to tell you what I tell my clients all the time. You have to imagine that you yourself fall asleep in your bed, and then you wake up in the middle of the night and you're on your front lawn or in the middle of the street. You'd be really startled. You'd be super disoriented. You'd be scared. And you'd have a really hard time falling back to sleep until you were back in your own bed, because that's where you fell asleep at bedtime. It's what you know best. And so the same thing happens to a baby or a toddler. When they fall asleep with the help of a parent or by being fed to sleep or whatever it is, and then they wake up in the middle of the night and suddenly that support isn't there, they're going to be startled and scared. And the way that they're going to be able to get back to sleep is if they get that same level of support that they had at bedtime. Now, if your daughter is not waking up in the middle of the night, and like I said, you don't want to change anything, then that's fine. Keep going. But eventually there is a chance that you may notice that her sleep is going to get disrupted. And at that point, you may want to consider empowering her with independent sleep skills.
Great. I don't know if she does wake up in the middle of the night and goes back to sleep on her own.
Okay, great. So you know she can do it, right? So it's really going to be, whenever you're ready. It's important that you do what makes you feel most comfortable.
Awesome. We have another question from Karen. Middle of the night wake ups. I currently bring my daughter into my bed at that point because it's easiest and we're both exhausted. But what are the best ways to try to get her to stay in her bed the entire night? I know she can do it as if she sleeps over at her grandparents. She sleeps through.
Is she falling asleep independently at bedtime, or are you helping her to sleep? That will help me answer.
Yeah, she's falling asleep independently. I'll do check-ins, but she falls asleep on her own.
Okay. So this ultimately is a boundary concern. I would say she knows that as long as she's persistent, she will be able to go into your bed. So this is going to be another one of those situations where you're going to want to have a family meeting, explain what you're noticing, what the expectations are, and then role play and pretend it's the middle of the night. As soon as you hold firm to the boundary, she will then learn that you mean business and that she will not have an opportunity to be into your bed in your bed. Now, she still may come out of her bed and into your room as she experiments with these new expectations. You have a couple of options here. The first thing that I'm going to recommend is it's called silent return. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's exactly what it sounds like. You are going to silently return her to her own room. That means we are not engaging. If she tries to chat you up, you're going to say it's bedtime, good night. You're going back to your room and you're just going to pick a phrase. Good, I don't know her name. Good night. I love you. I'll see you in the morning. Every time she tries to talk to you, you're just going to keep repeating the phrase. You're going to try to remain calm and stoic. We're not threatening. We're not saying if you do this, then you can't do that. It's not about that. It's just about holding a firm and loving boundary. So you're going to do silent return. Okay. Eventually, what's going to happen is once she gets good at being returned to her room and she stops protesting that, eventually she might come to your room and you'll be able to say, hey, go back to bed. I love you. And like, you won't have to return her. You won't have to do the return with her. Something that I have here that I can show you that might be helpful. There are a bunch of different incentives that you can implement. As long as you implement them consistently, they do work. One of them I have here, this is my son's. Okay, he made a sample. So you'd write their name and write the bedtime pass. They can decorate it. My son has just learned how to draw flowers, so he's into that. The bedtime pass is exactly what it sounds like. So say your daughter gets out of bed 3 times on a good night, right? You can guarantee 3 times. You're going to create 3 bedtime passes with her. So for mine, it would say Danielle's bedtime pass. Every time your daughter gets out of bed, she has to give in a pass to you. Okay? If she got out of bed once, and that means she gave you 1 pass, she has 2 left over by the morning. That means that she gets to pick 2 prizes. They could be having 5 blueberries instead of 3. It could be getting a toy from Target. Make the prizes exciting or as boring as you want it to be. The idea, though, is she understands that there are consequences to her behavior. If she gets out of bed, she has to turn in a pass. If not, she gets to keep the passes. You can decide how many prizes you want to give her. Does she just get 1 prize no matter how many passes she keeps? That's going to be up to you, obviously. And then you'll eventually have to wean her from the passes, but that could be one way to incentivize her to not leave her bed. And there are others as well. You're welcome.
Perfect. We have a follow-up for Dahlia. I don't know if it's easier for you if you can to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, sure. Hi. I just can't put
Hi.
my camera on, but thanks so much. Yeah, so my toddler, with the long bedtime routine, we start really early because we kind of anticipate this. She started school, and I mean, I think she still needs a nap, but she is now refusing to do it on weekends too, because in school she's just lying there. Um, so she's been going to sleep around 7:15 and wake up at 6:15 a.m. But you're saying that that's okay because it's 11 hours in a 24-hour period.
Yeah, for 2.5-year-olds, so for 2-year-olds, it's 12 to 12 and a half hours in a 24-hour period. But that's the average number, right? And there's no such thing as a textbook child. So if she has lower sleep needs, then 11 hours is totally fine. As long as you wanna, for me, I'm mostly concerned about temperament, right? If she's happy and has a nice and even temperament throughout the day, then I'm not concerned about 11.
No, she's very cranky by the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay.
And they try to get her to nap at school. It's just not working. She
You know what
won't do
time
it.
nap time is? Do you know what time it is?
It's at 1.
And she's 2.5. That's probably just too early. She's probably just not tired.
She's not tired yet. Yeah, because if we drive anywhere in a car on Sunday, she always falls asleep, at the end of the car ride. So I know she's tired, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
when nap time is,
I know. It's really hard. At 2.5, I'm thinking my son, his nap time was like 2. So, I mean, it's probably just that she's not tired. Is there any way? I mean, I don't know how long nap time is at her school. Is there any way that they can make some sort of accommodation to help her go down even at like 1:45?
I could ask. Yeah, she's definitely not tired. So it's just kind of like I feel so bad for her because by like 4:30 p.m. she's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, so at that point, her bedtime should, if she's not going to nap, her bedtime is probably gonna have to be around like 6:30.
Okay, okay,
I would just make it earlier because what's wind up, if it's getting really late, it's probably just because she's so overtired if she's not napping.
right. Okay,
Right.
so 6:30 isn't too early.
No, 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 no. I wouldn't do anything before that, but
Mhm.
somewhere between like 6:30 and 7, I would say is a sweet spot.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
so try that. And, you can always reach out if it still persists.
Okay.
Great. Diana, you said you had a question?
Yes, thank you. First of all, this is amazing. This is so valuable. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Love and learning a lot. So I'm the one who asked about rocking the 21-month-old to sleep.
Sure.
Now in the morning, she wakes up before me. She sleeps in her own bedroom in her own crib. During the night, she'll wake up sometimes and she'll drink her water in her weighted water cup and goes back to sleep on her own. So that's usually fine. In the morning, she wakes up before me. So I'm a single mom. So, I jump out of bed, I run into the shower, I take a quick shower while she is still in her crib. But sometimes she'll wake up. She'll sit there and just kind of sit with her blankie, play with her blankets. Could be up to an hour that she can just quietly sit on her own. Is that a problem? I'm just afraid that she might develop some loneliness syndrome or something like that.
No, she won't. If anything, she'll just be very creative. She won't be lonely, I promise. What time is that happening? Is it like at 5 o'clock or is it at 6 o'clock?
No, she wakes up between 6 and 6:30.
Oh, that's fine. My daughter does the exact same thing. If they had phones, they could text each other. It's totally fine. I promise. No, as long as, again, I'm going to say the same thing about temperament. If she's happy during the day and she doesn't seem overtired, that, is totally fine. 6:30 is a perfectly reasonable wake up time. I know it feels early for us, but for them, it's perfectly reasonable. And as long as she's happy, and that's totally fine. My daughter literally, I don't even know what she's talking about in the morning in her crib, but it's one of my favorite things to listen to. So enjoy it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Amazing. We have about 5 minutes left if anyone has any last minute questions that we didn't get to.
Yeah, if there are no other questions, I just want to quickly, I know I didn't get to say this at the beginning, but if anybody finds that they could use some one-on-one support, I just want to quickly explain what that looks like for a toddler. For infants, I do in-person sleep training for up to 12 months, but that's obviously not what we're talking about right now. So my most popular package is a 2-week package. So what that looks like is it's very, very hands-on in terms of the support that I'm offering you. So you're going to get a completely customized written sleep plan that will outline sleep training methods for toddlers, all the incentives, not just the bedtime pass. And the idea is to obviously empower your child with independent sleep. So you're going to get scripts and language needed for those family meetings, for the role playing. You're going to get step-by-step instructions going through the phases of the sleep training. We're going to have 2 30-minute phone calls, one to be used at the beginning of the 2 weeks to go over the plan and get you feeling really comfortable and confident before we implement anything, and then another one to wrap up. And then in between there, you're going to have 2 weeks of text message support with me. And so I will support you in real time during bedtime. Even if your child is not napping, you could text me all throughout the day. Any question is fair game. But it's really, really, really hands-on in terms of the support that I'm giving you. And the reason it's 2 weeks is because as long as a family is super consistent with implementation, then 2 weeks is the perfect amount of time to change things around for you. And oftentimes it's even before 2 weeks. Happy to answer questions about what working together could look like as well, if you have any.
Great. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
With
How does that
multiple,
work? Yeah.
sure. So what ages do you mean like at the same time? If you want to unmute yourself, you can feel free as well. And are they room sharing? And do you mean that they would both need to be sleep trained? Or you're just concerned that they're sharing a room and one might wake the other? Okay, I'm just gonna get, okay, trying to swap away from co-sleeping. Got it. Okay. I am, if you're able to unmute yourself, it would be really helpful because I likely will have follow-up questions. But for a 2 and a 4-year-old, the sleep plan is going to essentially be the same. Obviously, the 4-year-old is going to have stronger language and communication skills than a 2-year-old, just because they're 4. But the sleep plan will basically be the same with the exception of sleep needs and schedules and bedtimes and nap times and whatnot. But the sleep plan will essentially be the same. I'm not sure if that was your question. If you want, you can, I don't know if you're following me on Instagram already, but you can follow me at DG Sleep Consulting. If you want to DM me, I'm happy to talk more, Cassie, about what working together could look like. You can also, I offer free discovery calls. So you can book a free 15-minute discovery call on my website, and, you know, we can talk about what working together could look like there if you want to do that as well. Dan, I saw you had one more question. If my 19-month-old toddler doesn't have her own room and we share a room, one second. Any differences in what you've shared so far? If she wakes up in the middle of the night, should we not pick her up? So the good news is that there's no one size fits all approach to sleep training, meaning that the sleep training method that, you know, worked for me may not work for you. And so the idea is that you want to choose a sleep training method that aligns with your parenting style. So there are some methods that are going to have you, you know, not picking up your child regardless of the room that they're sleeping in. For a 19-month-old, you have 1, 2, 3. You have 3 to 4 really great sleep training methods at your fingertips that you can implement. None of them involve picking up and rocking to sleep, but it does start, you know, like you said, she starts with sleeping on her own during bedtime. So if she's falling asleep on her own in the middle of the night, then you're going to want to make sure that you have an age appropriate schedule. Because if she can fall asleep at bedtime, then I'm very confident that she can fall asleep again in the middle of the night. But I would just say choose a sleep training method that that aligns with your parenting style, and then, you know, implement with consistency. If you need support, obviously, with picking a sleep training method and with implementing, I'm always happy to help. Okay, yeah, 20 to 60 minutes is definitely a long time to fall asleep. It's amazing that she's doing so on her own, but my guess is that there's some sort of, you know, scheduling issue. I'm happy to chat about how we can fix that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle. We appreciate this a lot. I know we got to so many questions and you helped out so many people today. You mentioned your Instagram.
Yes.
Are there any other ways that people can reach out to you if
Yes.
they have
So
other questions?
I can type in the chat. I know that you put what's it called? My Instagram handle in there. I will put that in one more time. My website is dgsleepconsulting.com. So I will write that in there as well. And then my email is danielle@dgsleepconsulting.com. So lots of DG Sleep. Let me just make sure there are no typos. DG Sleep Consulting. Perfect. So you can give me a follow. I put a lot of tips for infant and toddler sleep on there. So again, if you have any infants and you're looking for support with your infants as well, I'm happy to help there. And like I said, I do offer free 15-minute discovery calls if you want to learn more about working together could look like. But I hope this was helpful. It was so fun. You had great questions. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to hang out.
Yeah, thank you guys all so much for being here. And thanks again, Danielle. We appreciate it so much.
Yes.
We'll be sure to include all of this contact stuff in our follow-up message to all of you guys as well, so that you can reach out. But yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.